The crystalline spires of Nethys Prime pierced the violet sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces pulsing with bioluminescent veins that carried information throughout the floating city. Captain Joran Blackwood stood at attention in the receiving chamber. His black tactical armor, a stark contrast to the prismatic walls that shifted colors with each passing thought current from the palace's telepathic inhabitants, he'd been briefed on. Princess Zyla's reputation. 3 previous human guardians had requested immediate transfer after less than a month of service. The reports cited irreconcilable differences in psychological stress, but Jorah knew the real reason. The Nethys royal family possessed psychic abilities that could drive lesser minds to madness, and their princess was notorious for testing limits. The chamber doors dissolved like mist, revealing a figure that made Joran's disciplined composure falter for just a moment. Princess Zyla glided forward on legs that seemed to barely touch the crystal floor, her skin an iridescent silver that caught the ambient light. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, and her eyes were the deep purple of nebulae. She was stunning in an alien way that spoke to something primal in his human brain. "Another meat shield from the Terran Federation," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in his chest. "Tell me, Captain Blackwood, what makes you think you'll last longer than your predecessors?" Joran remained motionless. "I serve at the pleasure of the Nethys Empire, Your Highness." A smile played across her lips, not kind, but predatory. Wonderfully formal. "I do so enjoy breaking in new toys, without warning." She spun and walked toward the chamber's vast window wall that overlooked the city's impossible architecture. "I'm going flying," she announced. "Try not to fall behind." She pressed her palm against the crystal surface, and it parted like water. The princess stepped onto a platform that materialized from thin air-pure psychic energy given form. Shot away from the palace with her standing perfectly balanced, arms spread wide to catch the rushing wind, Joran activated his suit's flight systems, the miniature repulsors engaging with a soft whine. He launched himself after her, his heavier frame cutting through the air with mechanical precision while she danced on currents of pure thought. The chase led through the city's vertical maze, past towers that sang with crystalline voices and gardens that floated freely in the void between structures. Princess Zyla's laughter echoed off the surrounding spires as she wove between them at breakneck speed. Clearly hoping to see him crash into the unforgiving surfaces, she dove toward the city's core, where streams of molten quantum energy flowed like rivers through transparent tubes. The heat signatures on Joran's display spiked into dangerous territory, but he followed without hesitation. The princess was testing him, probing for weakness, and he refused to give her the satisfaction. At the last possible moment, she pulled up from her dive, her psychic platform shimmering as it redirected its momentum. Joran's more mechanical approach couldn't match her fluid grace, but his military training had prepared him for far worse than showing off for a spoiled royal. When they finally returned to the palace, Princess Zyla was flushed with excitement and mild disappointment. "You're more persistent than the others," she admitted, studying him with new interest. "But persistence alone won't save you from what I have planned." Joran simply nodded. "I look forward to the challenge, Your Highness." Her purple eyes gleamed with something between amusement and anticipation. She had no idea that he'd been specifically selected not just for his combat skills, but for his mental resilience. The Terran Federation's psychological evaluations had identified him as one of the few humans capable of withstanding prolonged psychic contact with hostile telepaths. Princess Zyla was about to discover that her new guardian was unlike any human she'd encountered before. The quantum gardens of Nethys Prime defied every law of physics Joran understood. Flowers bloomed in impossible colors that had no names in human languages, their petals shifting through dimensions that made his eyes water if he stared too long. Princess Zyla walked among them like she belonged to this alien paradise, her fingers trailing energy that made the exotic plants lean toward her touch. "The Terran ambassador arrives tomorrow," she said without turning around, her voice carrying that musical quality that seemed to vibrate in his bones. "Father expects me to play the perfect diplomatic princess." Joran maintained his position, 3 meters behind her, his sensors constantly scanning for threats. The alliance with the Federation is important to your people, Your Highness. Important. She laughed, a sound like crystal bells breaking. Everything is about importance and duty and political necessity. Do you know what I think about that, Captain? Before he could respond, she spun and thrust her hand toward him. Psychic energy erupted from her palm, not an attack, but a flood of pure emotion. Boredom, frustration, and a desperate need for. Something real crashed into his mind like a tidal wave. Lesser humans had been reduced to gibbering wrecks by such psychic assaults. Joran's enhanced mental barriers held. The sensation washed over him and dissipated, leaving him standing exactly as he had been. I think you're testing me again, Your Highness. Her purple eyes widened with surprise, then narrowed with something darker. Interesting. The others always fell to their knees, clutching their heads and begging me to stop. I'm not the others. No, she agreed, circling him like a predator. Studying prey. You're not. Which makes you either very dangerous or very stupid. The crystal pathway beneath their feet began to resonate with harmonic vibrations. Someone approaching with considerable psychic presence. Emperor Vorthok materialized from the garden's dimensional folds, his ancient form draped in robes that seemed woven from starlight itself. His telepathic aura was so powerful that nearby flowers turned to face him like organic solar collectors. Daughter, he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. The Federation's diplomatic vessel has detected unauthorized energy discharges from the palace. Ambassador Kestrel is asking pointed questions about your recreational activities. Princess Zyla's defiant expression faltered slightly. Now simply showing Captain Blackwood the gardens. You were attempting to psychically dominate a Federation officer. The Emperor corrected, his mental voice carrying disappointment that made the air itself seem to grow cold. This behavior ends now, Father, I silence. Such psychic force that even Joran felt it like a physical pressure. Your games have gone too far. The previous Guardian spoke of harassment, psychological torture, and deliberate endangerment. The Federation tolerates this because they need our quantum technology, but their patience has limits. Emperor Vorthok turned his ancient gaze to Joran. Captain, your psychological profile indicates unusual resistance to telepathic influence. Is this accurate? Yes, sir. I've been exposed to hostile psychic entities during my service on the frontier. Worlds excellent. The Emperor's smile was not reassuring, and you will be perfect for what I have in mind. Princess Zyla stepped backward, suddenly wary. Father, what are you the ritual of synaptic bonding? He announced. An ancient ceremony that will link your consciousness directly to Captain Blackwood's. You will share thoughts, emotions, even physical sensations. His discipline will temper your chaos, and your power will enhance his capabilities. The color drained from Zyla's silver skin. That's barbaric. The bonding hasn't been used in over 3 centuries, because it wasn't necessary, but your behavior has made it so. The Emperor's psychic presence expanded, filling the garden with inexorable authority. The ceremony will take place at sunset. Captain Blackwood, are you prepared to accept this responsibility? Joran considered the implications. A psychic bond with an alien telepath would change him fundamentally, possibly forever. But his duty was clear. I serve the Alliance, Your Majesty. Father, please. Zyla's voice carried genuine fear for the first time since he'd met her. I'll behave. I'll follow protocol. I'll be the perfect princess. Too late. Emperor Vorthok began to fade back into the dimensional folds of the garden. The decision is made. High Priestess Nylara will conduct the ceremony in the sacred chamber. Neither of you will be the same afterward. As the Emperor vanished, Princess Zyla turned to Joran with something approaching panic in her purple eyes. You don't understand what this means. The bonding doesn't just link minds, it fuses souls. Every secret, every memory, every private thought will belong to both of us. Joran's expression remained impassive. Then I suggest you prepare yourself. Your Highness, because ready or not, we're about to become very well acquainted. The sacred chamber lay deep beneath Nethi's Prime's crystal spires, carved from a single massive geode that pulsed with its own inner light. Ancient symbols covered every surface, their meanings lost to all but the High Priestess Nylara, whose Silver hair had turned white from centuries of communing with psychic forces beyond mortal comprehension. Princess Zila knelt on one side of the ritual circle, her ceremonial robes shimmering with embedded quantum threads. Across from her, Captain Joran Blackwood had been stripped of his armor and tactical gear, wearing only simple black pants that left his scarred torso exposed. The contrast was stark, her alien elegance against his human functionality, her refined features against his weathered battlefield face. The synaptic bonding was created during our species' most violent era, High Priestess Nylar explained, her voice echoing in the crystalline chamber. Warriors would bond with their battlemates to achieve perfect coordination in combat. It comes at a price-complete psychological merger. She approached with a basin-containing liquid that seemed to contain captured starlight, swirling with energies that made reality bend around its edges. Once the neural pathways are linked, there will be no privacy, no individual thoughts that remain hidden. You will know each other as intimately as you know yourselves. Zyla's hands trembled as the priestess dipped crystalline needles into the luminous solution. There has to be another way. Some diplomatic solution that doesn't require your father has decided. Nylara's ancient eyes showed no sympathy. The bonding will proceed. The first needle pierced the base of Zyla's skull, injecting nanoscopic organisms that immediately began rewriting her neural architecture. The pain was indescribable, like having her brain rewired with molten metal. She screamed, her psychic agony resonating through the chamber's crystal walls. Joran felt the needle enter his own nervous system. Da-da-da-da-da. And suddenly he was experiencing Zyla's pain alongside his own. But more than that, he was experiencing her. Memories crashed through his consciousness like a tsunami, a lonely childhood in crystal towers, desperate attempts to gain her father's attention, the suffocating weight of royal expectations, and, beneath it all, a profound isolation that no amount of luxury could fill. The princess gasped as his memories flooded into her awareness. She saw battlefields where he'd lost entire squads under his command, felt the crushing responsibility of command decisions that had saved some lives by sacrificing others. She experienced his ironclad discipline as something forged in the crucible of survivor's guilt and military necessity. "Fight it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Don't let me into your mind completely."
God.
Too late, he ground out through clenched teeth. The neural nanites were spreading, creating permanent bridges between their consciousness. "I can feel you trying to push me out." The bonding accelerated beyond their control. Zyla's psychic abilities, enhanced by the nanites, began resonating with Joran's enhanced neural patterns. She could suddenly perceive electromagnetic spectrums her species had never evolved to detect, while he found himself able to sense the emotional states of every living thing in a 100-meter radius. "The merger is deeper than expected," High Priestess Nylara observed with clinical fascination. "Your human neural architecture is actually amplifying her telepathic capabilities, while her psychic sensitivity is unlocking dormant regions of your brain." Joran felt his tactical awareness expanding exponentially. Through Zyla's enhanced senses, he could perceive threats and opportunities with superhuman clarity. But the cost was equally dramatic. Her emotional chaos was bleeding into his carefully maintained psychological barriers. "Make it stop," Zyla pleaded, but even as she spoke, she was experiencing something she'd never known before: genuine connection. For the first time in her life, another consciousness understood her completely, saw past her royal facade to the frightened, lonely person beneath. "I can't," Joran replied, and she felt his truth through their shared connection. He was just as overwhelmed as she was, but his military training allowed him to function despite the psychological storm. The bonding reached its crescendo as the nanites completed their neural restructuring. For a moment that lasted an eternity, they shared a single consciousness, his memories becoming hers, her experiences becoming his, their individual identities dissolving into something larger and more complex than either had been alone. Then, gradually, they began to separate back into distinct personalities, but forever changed. The neural link remained, a permanent bridge between their minds that would never fully close. "It's done," High Priestess Nylar announced. "You are bonded for life." His strength is your strength. Your power is his power. As both of your weaknesses belong to each other as well. Princess Zyla looked at Captain Blackwood with new eyes, seeing him not as an obstacle to overcome, but as a part of herself she'd never known existed. The sensation was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. "I can feel what you're thinking," she whispered. "And I can feel what you're feeling," he replied. "This changes everything." The diplomatic reception hall buzzed with tension as representatives from a dozen worlds gathered to witness the historic signing of the Nethys Federation Trade Accord. Princess Zyla stood beside her father, resplendent in ceremonial robes that shifted color with her emotional state, currently. A nervous silver blue, that captain. Blackwood could feel as his own anxiety through their neural link. 3 days had passed since the bonding ceremony, and neither had fully adjusted to their new reality. Simple tasks became complicated when filtered through two perspectives simultaneously. When Zyla sipped her morning quantum tea, Joran tasted the exotic flavors despite being stationed across the room. When he performed his daily combat drills, she felt every muscle strain and impact as if they were her own. Ambassador Kestrel approaches. Joran's voice whispered directly into her mind through their connection. She's suspicious about the bonding. Her bioreadings indicate elevated stress levels. Zyla turned gracefully as the Federation's chief diplomat approached, a stern woman whose cybernetic implants gleamed against her dark skin. "Your Highness, congratulations on your recent ... enhancement. The Federation is curious about the implications of this ancient ritual. Merely a ceremonial bonding to ensure Captain Blackwood's complete dedication to my safety," Zyla replied smoothly, but through their link. Joran felt her spike of irritation at the probe. "Ambassador." Kestrel's enhanced eyes focused on something beyond normal human perception. "Interesting. My sensors detect quantum entanglement patterns between you and the captain. It's quite intimate, from a neural standpoint." Before Zyla could respond, her father's presence filled the hall like a psychic thunderstorm. "Ambassador such. Technical discussions bore my daughter. Perhaps we should focus on the trade negotiations." As the conversation shifted to safer diplomatic ground, Zyla found her attention drifting through their shared connection to Joran's tactical assessment of the room. Through his enhanced awareness, she could see subtle tells she'd never noticed, the micro-expressions that revealed hidden agendas, the positioning that indicated potential threats, the careful choreography of political maneuvering. "Delegate is armed," his thoughts informed her, concealed plasma blade in his ceremonial sash. "That's normal for his species," she replied mentally. "But you're right to be cautious. The Veilthus have territorial disputes with both our empires. Their shared consciousness had created an unprecedented intelligence network. Her telepathic sensitivity combined with his tactical training made them aware of threats and opportunities that would have been invisible to either alone." The formal proceedings continued, but Zyla found herself increasingly distracted by the emotional undercurrents flowing through their bond. Joran's disciplined mind was like a calm ocean compared to her turbulent thoughts, but she could sense deeper currents beneath his surface-old pain from battles lost. Guilt over decisions made under impossible circumstances, and something else she was only beginning to understand. "You care about me," she realized suddenly, the thought appearing in both their minds simultaneously. His mental response was immediate and defensive. "I'm assigned to protect you." "That's not what I mean, and you know it." The conversation around them faded into background noise as they engaged in their first truly private dialogue through the neural link. In the 3 days since bonding, they'd been focused on practical adjustments, learning to function with shared consciousness. But now Zyla was exploring deeper, more personal territories. "Your previous guardians saw me as a spoiled alien princess," she continued, "but you see something else, don't you?" Joran's mental barriers, formidable even after the bonding, began to show cracks. Through them, she glimpsed his true perception of her, not the petulant royal she pretended to be, but a brilliant, powerful young woman trapped by circumstances and expectations she'd never chosen. "You're lonely," he admitted through their connection. "So am I. The bonding just makes it impossible to hide." The revelation hung between them like a bridge neither had expected to build around them, The diplomatic reception continued its elaborate dance of protocol and politics, but within their shared consciousness, something more honest was taking shape. The veil this delegate is moving toward. The quantum core display Duran's tactical instincts interrupted their moment. His emotional state suggests hostile intent. Instantly, they were a team again. Enhanced telepathic range. She probed the alien surface thoughts and found exactly what Joran suspected. Planned to sabotage the trade negotiations by damaging the quantum technology demonstration. Father. She spoke aloud, while simultaneously projecting the threat assessment through her royal bloodline's hereditary telepathic channel. Emperor. Vorthok's response was immediate and decisive. Ala security moved with fluid precision, intercepting the Veilthus delegate just as his hand reached for the concealed weapon. The potential incident was resolved so smoothly that most attendees never realized anything had happened. Impressive coordination, Ambassador Kestrel noted quietly. The bonding has created quite an effective security partnership. Princess Zyla smiled, feeling Duran's satisfaction through their link. We work well together. Later in the privacy of her chambers, they sat across from each other in comfortable silence, their shared awareness making conversation unnecessary. The neural bond had forced them to confront truths about themselves and each other that might have taken years to discover naturally. This isn't what either of us expected, Zyla said finally. No, Joran agreed. It's better. The Peace Summit was meant to be the crowning achievement of the Nethys Federation. Alliance representatives from 37 worlds gathered in the palace's grand assembly chamber to witness the signing of the Mutual Defense Pact. Princess Zyla stood beside the crystalline podium where her father prepared to make his historic address, while Captain Blackwood maintained his vigilant position, their shared consciousness monitoring every detail of the sprawling event. Through their neural link, they perceived the gathering from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Zyla's telepathic sensitivity detected the emotional undercurrents of the assembled delegates, while Duran's tactical training cataloged potential threats and escape routes. Together, they formed an unprecedented security network. Something's wrong with the quantum stabilizers. Joran's thought appeared in her mind as his enhanced senses detected subtle fluctuations in the chamber's energy patterns. I feel it too, she replied mentally. But it's not technical, it's deliberate. Someone's been tampering with the palace's power grid. Before either could react, the lights flickered and died. Emergency illumination bathed the chamber in crimson light as armored figures emerged from concealed positions throughout the hall. The rebels wore the deep purple armor of the purest faction, Nethys extremists, who viewed any alliance with alien species as contamination of their psychic purity. Death to the collaborators, shouted their leader, a scarred Nethys warrior whose psychic presence radiated hatred like toxic radiation. The old blood must be cleansed of foreign influence. Chaos erupted as delegates scrambled for cover. Energy. Weapons discharged in brilliant flashes, their beams cutting through crystal pillars and exotic plants alike. Through their shared awareness, Zyla and Joran moved as one organism. She provided psychic reconnaissance, while he handled physical threats with lethal efficiency. 12 hostiles, heavy weapons, coordinated assault pattern, his tactical assessment flowed through their link. They've been planning this for months. Their leader is Vex Morthok. She identified through her knowledge of court politics. He's my father's cousin. This is a coup attempt, not just terrorism. Emperor Vorthok's massive psychic presence filled the chamber as he began weaving defensive barriers from pure mental energy. But the rebels had come prepared with psychic dampening fields that limited telepathic abilities, forcing the royal family to rely more heavily on conventional defenses. A plasma bolt seared past Zyla's head, and she felt Joran's protective instincts flare through their bond. He appeared at her side with inhuman speed, his military-grade energy. Shield deflecting another volley while she reached out with her remaining psychic abilities to confuse the attacker's targeting systems. The quantum core? She gasped as explosions rocked the chamber's foundation. They're trying to overload it. If it breaches, it'll take out half the capital. Through their shared consciousness, they formulated a desperate plan. Joran would fight their way through the rebels to reach the core chamber, while Zila used her royal access codes to prevent the overload. It would require perfect coordination and trust in their neural bond. They moved through the chaos like a single entity with two bodies. When rebels emerged from behind cover, Zyla's telepathic awareness guided Joran's aim with supernatural precision. When energy barriers blocked their path, his tactical knowledge helped her focus her psychic abilities for maximum effect. "Can't save them all, collaborator." Vex Morthok's voice boomed as he intercepted them near the core chamber entrance. His scarred face twisted with fanatic hatred as he raised a weapon designed specifically to disrupt neural bonds. "Let me free you from this alien contamination." The psychic disruptor fired, sending waves of agony through their shared connection. For a terrifying moment, Zila felt their bond beginning to dissolve, their merged consciousness fragmenting back into separate, isolated minds. "No!" Joran roared, fighting through the neural static to maintain their link. Through sheer force of will, he held on to her presence in his mind, refusing to let the artificial separation take hold. "I won't let you go," Zila whispered, adding her own desperate strength to his effort. Together, they pushed back against the disruptor's influence, their bond deepening rather than breaking under the assault. The unexpected resistance shattered Vex's confidence. Impossible. No alien contamination should be that strong. "It's not contamination," Princess Zila said, rising to her feet with newfound certainty. "It's evolution." Their merged consciousness exploded outward in a psychic shockwave that overwhelmed the rebels' dampening fields. Every hostile in the chamber suddenly found their minds filled with the combined will of two beings who had chosen to become something greater than the sum of their parts. The rebellion collapsed in minutes as their leader fell unconscious and his followers surrendered rather than face the terrifying unity of the bonded pair. In the aftermath, as medical teams tended to the wounded and security forces secured the palace, Emperor Vorthok approached his daughter and her guardian. "The alliance grows stronger," he observed, his ancient eyes showing approval. "You have become something new, neither purely Nethys nor purely human, but a bridge between our peoples." Princess Zyla and Captain Blackwood stood together, their shared consciousness humming with contentment. Through trials of fire and forced intimacy, they had discovered that some bonds could not be broken by force or dissolved by fear. "What happens now?" she asked, though through their link she already knew his answer. "Now we face the future together," Joran replied, "as we always will." In the crystalline spires of Nethys Prime, a new chapter in interstellar relations had begun, written in the shared consciousness of two beings who had found in their forced unity something neither had known they were searching for: completion.